Lions TV, I'm home, back at Lions TV Towers. It feels good to be back. Can I just point out before we start this video, I'm fully aware that I'm wearing Millwall clobber. I only do that once a week when the kids play football, before people start getting on me in the comments. I'd also like to point out that I am fully aware that we've just won 4 straight games with some good performances. I'd also like to point out that I think we are going to be completely fine this season. I don't think we're going to get relegated. And also that we are only 3 points worse off now than we was at this point last season. On top of that, I'm going to wrap that by saying I am very much Neil Harrison. But this will not be pretty, so that's the disclaimer done. And let's take a look at the 11 that started the match. Before I go in depth on the match, I'm going to start by naming the 11 and saying something very brief about each player. So here we go. It was Jordan Archer in goal, should have saved the second. Marlon Romeo at right back, can't defend. Jake Cooper centre back, okay. Sean Hutchinson alongside him was off the pace. Alongside him, James Meredith left back's absolutely gone. Right midfield was Jeb Wallace, nothing came off for him. Central midfield was Ryan Tunnicliffe, doesn't do enough for me. Alongside him was Ryan Leonard, who also doesn't do enough for me. Shane Ferguson played left mid, few good deliveries. Aidan O'Brien looks completely lost in the position he plays in. And alongside him, after 3 minutes, was Steve Morrison, who I thought had a good game. Was that the 11 that I would have picked? No, and I'm about to tell you why. Before I even get into the 11, let's start with Fred Onyedinma, who didn't even make the squad, and I backed him to play some part. The reason that being was he'd been away from the club, and you know, Fred is a little bit like Mama. I am a Fred fan, and I've said the reasons why a million times, so I won't go into that. But he's a Millwall player, he's a young player, which I think we need to start looking at, by the way, a lot more, and I'll get onto that shortly. Fred, apparently, Harris, saying Fred's been unplayable, doesn't even make the bench. And the reason I think Fred didn't make the bench was because you had 2 forwards in Gregory and Morrison, fair enough, but you also had Yuri Skalak, and I think it's plain to see now, and we can all be pretty sure that Yuri Skalak's going to play absolutely no part in the future of Millwall Football Club. And that's nothing against Skalak. We haven't seen a great deal of him. When we do see some of him, it's not great, and I don't know if he's not settling or what, but in the long term, let's be straight, Yuri Skalak's not going to be at the football club. So for me now, we need to look at players that are younger, that could potentially come good. And for me, it was stupid to not put Fred Onyedinma at least on the bench yesterday. Alongside that, I will say, well, before I get into that actually, I'm going to start with a centre-back. Sean Hutchinson, you know, player of the year last year, brilliant. He's not been as great this year because obviously defence has been put under more pressure. So I think it's highlighting players more. I don't think he's had great help from Romeo, who I don't think can defend, to be honest with you. And also, I'd say Meredith's been massively off the boil. But we got told last week that Sean Hutchinson and Lee Gregory by Neil Harris wasn't fit, and this game was a bridge too far, and they'd probably be back for in contention for Borough. Now, I didn't go to the whole game, obviously, I was in hospital, but Pearce had a good strong debut. He's played a lot of games at championship level, and for me, he should have played in front of Hutchinson yesterday. Moving into midfield, now this is potentially a big problem for us. Ben Thompson. Ben Thompson is a Millwall fan, and you don't see this a lot these days, a player that is actually a committed fan of a club that they play for. No players really, if you get inside football clubs and you're around at training grounds like I've been, you know, there is no real football fans amongst players. They play, it's a job, which is fair enough to them. They play for a contract at the club they're at, which also Ben Marshall, which I'll cover later on. But Ben Thompson didn't want to leave Millwall. He went down the pecking order again. You know, I like Williams. He's, 30 years old, 31 years old. Ryan Tunnicliffe, who I'm not a massive fan of. For me, he was at Man United. He's bounced quickly down the leagues, and he hasn't played a great deal of games at any club he's been at. For me, if Harris is saying Ben Thompson's the future of Millwall Football Club, and if we played Thompson instead of Tunnicliffe or instead of Williams, would that really affect our survival in this division? No, I don't think so. But Thompson couldn't get near it, which I didn't feel was really justified, because when he did come on at points, I remember he coming against Rochdale. I know they're not a championship side. He scored a good goal. I thought we'd done all right when he did play in the championship. So now we ship him out on loan to Pompey. He didn't want to go. He's gone to Pompey, couldn't get in the first. Then he gets into the Pompey side and he's absolutely superb. He wins games for him, puts in tackles, he's scoring goals, and he's now settled in a Pompey side that are chasing promotion to the championship, and he's happy. He's playing football. He knows his parent club are doing the best for him. But now, what's happened, Williams comes back into fitness, which is coincidentally the time that Neil Harris calls Ben Thompson back. Now Harris is going around here marking Ben Thompson as a future Millwall captain. So for me, I would have thrown him absolutely straight into the mix yesterday instead of Tunnicliffe. Yes, he probably would have got booked. Yes, he would have almost definitely given the ball away a couple of times, because that's what Ben Thompson does. But you know he's out there, you know he's fighting for the shirt. And when he didn't start him yesterday, I put this tweet out here, look, bang, because I could see the way the game was going. It absolutely died a death, and it was crying out for someone to come on and bit of kick, bollock and bite and get the crowd going. And I don't know why he left Tunnicliffe on. I didn't think Tunnicliffe played well at all. 3 points for me that stick out in the game. He gave the ball away straight across the front of his goal after about 20 minutes and give them an opportunity to attack. The second one, where he's picked the ball up, it's an absolute disgrace. I coach the kids and I say to them, play to the whistle, why have you stopped? Ryan Tunnicliffe's picked the fucking ball up on the pitch when we had a good chance of attacking. We had men over there. Fergie was there and he's picked the fucking ball up. Well, what is that? Absolutely pathetic. And then the third thing I remember about Ryan Tunnicliffe's game yesterday was the short corner that come across in the second half and he's put in the upper tier of the cold blow lane. Now, people will think I'm hating on Tunnicliffe. I'm not hating on Tunnicliffe. Again, I'm a Millwall fan. I want Tunnicliffe to do well. If Tunnicliffe does well, Millwall do well. We get points, we get views on the channel. You know how it works by now. And Tunnicliffe has done well in recent games. I honestly think that. But what Tunnicliffe is, and I've worked this out, I call him the crab. He's sideways and backwards. He breaks play up occasionally, I'll grant him that. But when he knocks balls, he's here, bang, he's here. And that's okay. I think Tunnicliffe is a luxury player. I don't think he does anywhere near enough in central midfield. And especially when he's playing with Leonard. Now, I tell you why. If he's getting the ball, he's breaking up plays, giving nice little 2-yard passes here, nice little 5-yard pass there, sideways, looks lovely, looks technical, can't really go wrong with it. But you're giving the ball to players, no disrespect to Shane Ferguson and Jeb Wallace, who was off it yesterday. If you're giving that ball to Ryan Giggs there, and Andre Kanchelskis that side, things come of it. It looks fantastic. We need more in central midfield than someone who's going to play 2-yard passes. We haven't got anywhere near enough going forward. Now, Ryan Leonard, alongside Ryan Tunnicliffe, the jury's still out of me with Leonard. What I like that Leonard does do, he's forward thinking, and occasionally he'll pull something out of brilliance, as he did with a 25-yard shot yesterday, as he did with his goal against Ipswich, brilliant finish, and as he did, not sorry the ways, marauding run into the box and good assist for Gregory for the equaliser for 2-2. He has got flashes of brilliance, Leonard, and he wants to get forward, and I think with a better central midfielder alongside him, someone who's going to be a complete workhorse, ball winner, absolute lunatic animal, that's going to allow Leonard to get forward even further and get involved more. But I think Leonard knows that Tunnicliffe, he's got to help Tunnicliffe out and do a lot of work, because for me, honestly, Tunnicliffe's non-existent, and Ben Thompson absolutely, if not started, should have definitely played some part in that game yesterday. It was a shame to lose Big Tom Elliott yesterday, and Steve Morrison come on after 3 minutes and shut me up really, because I put a VT out saying Steve Morrison isn't a 90-minute player anymore, and I actually probably thought he was one of our best players yesterday, Morrow. Not everything came off he did, as it won't, but a few nice flicks, held the ball up well, won a few aerial battles, and I thought he did very well. Alongside him, Aidan O'Brien now, also let the record show that I am and always have been a fan of AOB. The reason I like Aidan O'Brien is he scores goals, and goals win football matches, end of story. And that's me, that's my whole basis of liking Aidan O'Brien, right? It may be shallow, right, but that is it. He's not bad on the ball, right, but the problem with Aidan O'Brien is he looks completely lost in any position that he plays in. And I've said this before, I think Aidan O'Brien would be more comfortable and have a better future away from Millwall unless we're prepared to break the 4-4-2 barriers. He, for me, is a luxury player as well, who would be great in a very successful League One side. He might even be very successful in a very good Championship side if he got a free role in behind a striker where he didn't have to track back, he didn't have to make tackles, he didn't have to really do anything other than just sit in behind a forward, create a few chances and score a few goals. But he is not a centre forward, not by an absolute long shot. He spent much of the last 3 years playing left midfield, and I actually prefer him there because he gets into pockets where he doesn't really know his position properly as a left midfielder. He wanders into pockets of areas that people think, oh, he's a left midfielder, what's he doing here? And he ends up scoring goals. He's not a forward. I think that's been clear to see from the last 3 or 4 games. He hasn't got any pace whatsoever. He hasn't got a lot of strength, so he's never going to be a Lee Gregory type player who can get off the knockdowns. He's also got no aerial threat, so he's not going to win any knockdowns. Now, a lot of you saying, Aidan O'Brien's shit. Then Aidan O'Brien played 1 game up front for Ireland, scored 1 goal, and everyone became experts of him. We always said Aidan O'Brien should play up front. He's not forward. He can't play up front. If you couldn't see that from the last 3 or 4 games, and then you've got shit in your eyes. When Lee Gregory came on, we just looked better all round. You can just see he knows it, it's his position, it's what he does. And we've got to keep hold of him. Our best option at the minute, unfortunately, not unfortunately because he got injured, that's what I meant, is Tom Elliott. Now Tom Elliott, again, another player, he's not going to be a world beater, he's not a great footballer. But if you look at Tom Elliott, don't look at how he plays a game of football, look at the end result. Against Ipswich, he's won the penalty that Fergie scored, he set up Jake Cooper with the assist, and he scored the third himself. So instead of looking at his all-round play, look at the facts. And for me, unless we've got money to spend for now, Tom Elliott's our best option up front with Lee Gregory.